All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Jason Brown here. Today, I have a special guest who's joining us. His name is Brad Long. Brad is a personal financial coach known as the Zero Debt Coach. And Brad is on a mission to help 10,000 six and seven figure corporate employees and entrepreneurs organize their finances, obliterate their debt, and accelerate toward financial independence by starting and growing online businesses, which, Brad, is the perfect segue into today's topic, which happens to be starting and growing an online business. So, Brad, thanks so much for joining us and sharing some of your insight today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Jason. I'm looking forward to this conversation about this topic as well. So thanks.
Awesome, man. And this is a topic I know a lot of people like myself. This is actually really helpful for myself too. A lot of people are trying to we have the side gig economy, people looking for side hustles or maybe passive income streams, stuff like that. So this kind of lines up right along those goals that people have. So Brad, let's just dive right into it. First question, someone like myself, no idea what they're doing. How in the world do you start an online business? What are some of the first steps that we would need to do to get started?
Yeah, great question. And that's where we all start, right? We all start with zero subscribers, zero content, zero, whatever. I think the first thing that you have to do is figure out, what idea, what kind of idea do you want to do? So obviously being a financial coach, you being in the personal finance space as well, one of the first things that we can do is start reaching out to, coach people. So I think that the very first thing you have to do is figure out, all right, what is it that you want to do? Where does your skill set sort of intersect with the marketplace? You'll hear a lot of people talk about, follow your passion, follow your passion. Yeah, that's great. Some people's passion is to sit on the couch and watch football. You're not going to get paid to do that unless you have some sort of sponsorship deal or something like that. So you've got to find something that is that intersects with what people are willing to pay for on some level. And if there is, if you perceive that it's a crowded niche or a crowded space, like personal finance is a very crowded space, that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. That means that there are people in that space that are willing to pay for that information, that instruction, that knowledge, those kinds of things. So I think the first thing to do is you've got to kind of look at what your skill set is and look at, all right, well, what am I interested in teaching people? So I'm, my sort of budding expertise in this is, creating digital courses, digital products, membership sites, where I'm basically sharing as part of the knowledge economy, and I'm showing people on my platform, I'm showing them how to organize and optimize their finances, get on a budget, obliterate debt, learn how to invest, start an online business. So if you're in the beginning stages of that, a great place to start is, by asking those questions. What am I naturally interested in? What do people tell me that I'm really good at? And then where in that sort of skill set can you find a way to potentially monetize that? Once you've kind of figured that out, then I think the very next thing that you need to do is start capturing content, start capturing some of your ideas, set up, like a free Facebook, group, like a free Facebook group, or go into other people's Facebook groups in that niche and start seeing what the conversations are like. Start asking questions, start trying to solve people's problems. And then I think, that's a really good foundation, is finding out, all right, well, what's potentially a profitable idea? And then there are all kinds of things that we can talk about in terms of what to do next.
Well, that's a perfect transition to my next question, Brett. And you kind of touched on a little bit on what you were saying before, but I was curious, what are some of the most successful types of online businesses? Are there certain niches that do better than others? Or is it just, like you said, should you just focus on something that you are truly interested in?
Yeah, I think the latter of what you're saying. You should focus on something that you're truly interested in. But I think that there are, there's a good amount of research that you should go through in terms of finding, all right, are there other people in this niche that are monetizing their content or monetizing their skill set? That's a really good place to start. But you also want to look at some of the ancillary niches as well. Like for me, an ancillary niche would be, personal productivity, online business, teaching online business is sort of an ancillary niche as well. Being focused on personal finance, those those concepts are directly transferable to starting a business and running a business and keeping a business on a budget and all those kinds of things. So yeah, I think it's really just, it's figuring out, all right, who else is out there is in the market. And then, when you first start out, you don't really know, nobody really knows what they're doing. There's a lot of free content out there. I would definitely recommend, enrolling in some sort of online business course. One of the very first ones that I enrolled in was Ruth Soukup's Elite Blog Academy. I started off, and this is a little bit about my journey. I started off as sort of a Dave Ramsey financial coach. I went through their training program. I was part of their subscription model for about a year and a half, where I was on their website. They were sending me leads that helped me get my feet wet as a coach in terms of figuring out the conversation, figuring out my coaching process. But I very quickly realized that it wasn't scalable. And so I knew that I wanted to get to a place where I was creating digital courses and membership sites and things that I could replicate and teach, not just one-to-one, but one-to-many, and create resources that could just keep selling over and over again. So I knew, probably by September of 2018 is when I sort of jettisoned that and started my blog and my platform in earnest. And I started off as a blogger, and I still do blog, but it's my main focus now is video content, and most of my public facing content is really pushed out on YouTube. And so we can talk a lot about, how to kind of get that ball rolling as well.
That's cool. Yeah, very good. That's a good way to get started. So let's talk about, people always want to talk about money, right? So the next question, what type of startup money might someone need to launch an online business? Or do you need any money? Or if so, what type of budgets should someone put together to start an online business?
Yeah, the great thing about starting an online business is that you can almost do it for free. I mean, you could definitely start an online business for less than $50. You need, a URL. You need to get basically a web domain for whatever custom web domain that you have. You need to set up a website. You can set up a free website on WordPress or Wix or one of those platforms. You want to also, when you start creating content, you also want to start capturing email addresses. So you want to have some kind of email service as well. But a lot of that stuff you can really set up, for free. The downside of that is the free stuff is usually the hardest stuff to work with in my experience. So I started off with a WordPress site. I started off with MailerLite as my email provider. Then I ultimately switched to ConvertKit, which is a paid service. And then what I would have done if I had to do it all over again is I actually switched about a year and a half into my journey into a full service platform called Kajabi. And it's basically where I can host my blog, my email list, all my digital products, my membership site. I can do webinars in there. I can basically do my coaching in there as well, for lack of a better term. So yeah, so I think starting out for free is great because you're going to need some time to kind of figure out all right, well, what is my niche? What am I trying to say? What am I trying to teach? And so the barrier of entry is very, very low, which is great.
Yeah. So the next question, Brad, is what would the reasonable timeline be for someone who's just starting out, who's just launching their own online business, to expect to receive some revenue? What would how long could you expect it before you start actually making money?
Yeah, that can take some time. Honestly, it really depends on how you're trying to monetize. And there are a lot of different ways to monetize. You can monetize via advertising revenue, like on YouTube. You can monetize via, ads on your blog. You can sell digital products. That's one of my favorites. You can also do coaching. I think one of the quickest ways to start monetizing your business is to do some sort of one-to-one coaching. If you have an area of expertise that people are willing, that you can sort of prove to the marketplace that, hey, I have this skill set. I know how to teach it to people, and people are willing to pay you one-to-one. That's probably the quickest way to monetization. And it's also one of the quickest ways to get to know your audience, get to know your avatar, as they call it in market speak, or your ideal person that you're trying to market yourself to. So that's a really, really great and fast way. So I think probably inherent in the question that you're asking is, full-time income? How long is it going to be until I can make a full-time income? And again, it varies widely. Some people are able to do it in a year. I teach my students that it's a reasonable time frame if you're creating weekly awesome content that's really helping people and solving their problems, and maybe you're doing some coaching, maybe you've created a digital product and or a membership site at some point, in that first year or two. If you're doing all the right things, it can still take up to 2 to 3 years to really monetize to a full-time income. Full-time income, I'm thinking, somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000. It's different for everybody. You're definitely going to want to have some sort of coaching or some sort of course that's going to shorten your learning curve, because if you've never done any kind of marketing, the thing about the online business space is you have whatever it is that your niche that you're teaching, but you're also simultaneously becoming an expert in digital marketing, like email marketing, how to create graphics, how to create videos. There's a huge skill set that you're garnering in the process. So I think that anything that you can do to make an investment into your business to shorten that length, to shorten that learning curve is going to pay off dividends and going to get you monetized faster.
Very good. Now, Brad, you mentioned marketing, so I just thought of this. So what are some of your tips and advice of how do you market or advertise or promote or create awareness around your new online business when you're just starting? What are some of the best ways to just get the word out?
Great question. Yeah, great question. I think the best thing that you can do is just become, as you get into maybe some of these Facebook groups or some of these online forums, one of the best things that you can sort of become known for is somebody that solves people's problems. Someone that serves people. People are going to take notice of you. You're going to really, ingratiate in a positive way you to that person's audience, maybe even to another content creator that you're sort of, maybe coming alongside on their platform and helping their students, get results and get results faster and things like that. So that's one way of marketing. And what that does is that really helps you create a vocabulary and an idea list for content that you need to create, because you're in there interacting with people that have real problems, that have real questions. You're listening to the way that they're formulating those and articulating those questions and those ideas and the things that they need help with. And that's just a gold mine for content, for blog posts, for videos, for social media posts, for all those things. And I said this earlier, one of the things that you should do as fast as you possibly can is figure out a way to capture people's email addresses, because that's really where you're going to want to sell things, that you're going to want to sell to your email list. We don't recommend totally relying on social media platforms like, Facebook or even search engines like YouTube, because they change the algorithms all the time. So you know that they're going to do that. You don't know when they're going to do that or what kind of effect that's going to have on your business. And you don't have control over that, but you do have control of your email list. And so that's really where you want to get people on there so you can start having conversations with them and talking to them and asking them questions and serving them more in a one-to-one fashion.
Very good. That's very good advice, Brad. Now I was thinking, what are some of the pros and cons of starting an online business? I know you have a lot of experience. You're doing a lot of this yourself, as you've been explaining. So what are some of the pros and cons you think of if someone's just wanting to start out?
I think even before, and I definitely want to get to the pros and cons, I think one of the most important things is what your why is. Like, why do you want to start an online business? For me, and possibly for you and for a lot of people in the audience, it was I was in corporate America. I was totally burned out. I knew that I wanted to be in a helping profession. I knew I wanted to be a financial coach. So I had that idea, I had that volition. And so I had a big why. My why was to be able to, get out of what I was doing. I was running away from something while simultaneously running towards something. And I just really wanted to serve, that community. So the pros and the cons of an online business, the pros are that ultimately, if you stick with it and you do the right things, it's almost a mathematical certainty that you will succeed at it. As long as you're, continuing to get better, you're publishing weekly, awesome, helpful, transformational content for your audience. and you're doing that on a weekly basis, and then you're building out a product suite, or maybe you're getting some affiliates that you can monetize through, advertising revenue. You're figuring out different ways that you can monetize. So that's awesome. The con is that there are a lot of gurus out there, a lot of guys that you see at the front end of like YouTube ads or Facebook ads that are like, you can build a digital course and, buy some Facebook ads and sell 100, you're going to have a 6-figure launch and you can sit back on the beach and sip pina coladas. And that's just, we all kind of inherently know we're being played when we see that, because that's not the truth. The truth is that it is a viable business model. It's a growing in popularity business model. The one to many where you've developed this expertise that you can share with the world and teach them. It takes time to develop that. It takes time to develop an audience. And so that's okay. Just know that this could be a 3 to 5 year process. But if you're starting it on the side as a side business or a side hustle, and you keep your day job and you do the responsible thing to be able to pay your bills and maybe, save for your retirement and maybe even use some of that money to invest back in your business, you're going to do fine. So I think the pros and the cons are dependent upon what a person's why is, what their goals are, what their timeline is for what they perceive to be success. And then I think another important facet of that that I think is a pro also is that I feel like the online community is a very giving community. So there are a lot of people that will be willing to sort of mentor you or mastermind with you to help you troubleshoot, like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't seem to be working. What do you think I should do? So yeah, tons of pros, tons of cons. I think it really just depends on where you're coming from and what you're trying to do with it.
Awesome, Brad. Now you touched on a little bit of this, and we're going to wrap up here. We'll have some final thoughts in a second, but I just thought of another thing. Now, if someone is already, because you were saying kind of like 3 to 5 years, it takes time to build traction and momentum and stuff like that. And you got to kind of be patient with it to build it and grow it, et cetera. So what advice or what, I guess, feedback can you give someone who's already started an online business and kind of in that phase, like I've been doing it for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, and I just feel stuck. I'm not growing.
Right.
I'm hitting the brick wall. What kind of encouragement can you give someone in that space?
Yeah, that's a really, really great and insightful question. And I think that that's a really hard thing. And I think that, to be completely transparent, I think that's something that we all struggle with. Everybody that you see that looks successful or maybe actually is successful in the online business space, we all struggle with things like imposter syndrome. We all struggle with things like, is the strategy I'm using right now the right one? Because you may not be getting results because maybe you're not doing some of the right things, but more often than that, it's just there hasn't been enough time that's passed for you to really develop and grow an audience. With an audience, you can do just about anything. Without an audience, you don't really have anybody. You're sort of speaking into a void. And so we all start that way. We all start with 0 email subscribers, 0 whatever platform we're on, subscribers or followers. And so it just takes time to build out that catalog of content, to develop your voice. At first, when you first start creating content, like you're speaking into a void and you don't know if anybody's listening to you. But the more you do that and the more you try to find interactions with individuals whose problems you can solve, and you listen to the way that they couch their problems and the way that they articulate their problems, and you're able to parrot that back, it's going to resonate with a wider and wider and wider audience. But it's a skill set, and it's a skill set that involves a lot of micro skill sets, and it takes a while to develop. If you've never been good at sales, if you've never been good at marketing, you can't just expect that you're going to throw up a website and, all of a sudden, 1,000 emails, people are going to beg you to give their email addresses. It just doesn't happen that way. So I think that part of that is, yeah, you may not be doing some of the right things, and that might be a good time to get into a course or a coaching community. But more often than not, it's really just you haven't been in the game enough time, or maybe you're not consistent enough with your audience for them to know that they can count on you. He shows up every Tuesday at 2:00. He has a video, and I know it's going to be valuable. And, it's almost like a sitcom TV show that's like they're on at 7 p.m., every Tuesday night. And I know I'm going to show up and it's going to be there, so you got to develop that consistency, and then also figure out, all right, what are the right things that I need to be doing?
Awesome, Brad. That's very well said, and I know that helps me as well because I'm in kind of that space too. So I know a lot of people are trying to, we're all trying to do the same thing. We all have similar goals and stuff with the
Yeah.
online business
Yeah.
endeavors. So that's really good. Brad, any final thoughts? Anything that we missed that you want to share? Any final tips or advice before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say, if, in an overarching sense, if you're thinking about starting an online business, if you're thinking about starting some type of platform because you have a passion project that you want to go after, I would say just start it. No one knows what they're doing at first. You're going to fail forward. This process is all about failing forward. And if you have a passion and you've figured out that there is some sort of need in the marketplace for that, I would say pursue it, especially if you have a bigger why. Like a lot of the people that we work with are trying to get out of corporate America. They're trying to escape, a crappy job that they really don't like. And so the closer you are to starting that, is the closer you are to being able to walk away from your corporate job someday, when that income either replaces or comes close to replacing the income of your corporate job. So yeah.
Sounds great, Brad. I want to thank you so much, Brad Long, my special guest today. Now, Brad, before we leave, let everybody know how they can connect with you if they want to follow up with you personally. I know you do financial coaching. I know you have a website, a YouTube channel. Let everybody know how they can find you.
Yes, thanks so much, Jason. I appreciate that. So my website is ZeroDebtCoach.com. That's ZERO debtcoach.com. And the place where I put out most of my public facing content is on YouTube. My channel is Bradlong Zero Debt Coach, all one word. And I publish content weekly on both of those platforms.
Very good, Brad. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been very insightful. Hopefully, all the viewers learned something from this conversation today as they either consider launching an online business or already have an online business and they're trying to grow it to earn more revenue in their respective niches. So until next time, for Mr. Brad Long, I'm Jason Brown. To always remind you to remember, it's not the amount of money you make, but the margin that matters the most.
That's right.
Next time.